Welcome to today's webinar, Opportunities in Printed Electronics, brought to you by FlexTech Alliance, with guest speakers from Frost & Sullivan's Technical Insights Group. My name's Denise Rael. I'm with FlexTech Alliance, and I'll be your moderator today. Before I introduce our speakers, I'd like to tell you a little bit about FlexTech Alliance. We're a member-driven organization promoting the flexible printed electronics industry. We identify technology gaps, resolve technical challenges, deliver information, and create networking opportunities via webinars, workshops, and conferences. In just 2 weeks, we'll be holding our next workshop in San Francisco in conjunction with Semicon West. The topic is metal oxide TFT devices and technologies. There's still time to register for this event. Visit our website for information. We've also just announced our 2013 Flex Conference, which will be held January 29th through February 1st, 2013 in Phoenix, Arizona. We have exhibitor and sponsorship opportunities available, and our call for papers opens in July. You can visit our Flex Conference site for details. Some logistics for today's webinar. If you have a question, you can enter it into the question box on your webinar screen. We'll have the Q&A session after the presentation. I'd also like to let you know about a special discount for registered attendees for today and also for FlexTech Alliance members. You're eligible for a $550 discount on Frost & Sullivan's recently published report, Opportunities in Printed Electronics. You can contact Jeanette Garcia at frost.com for more information. Today's speakers are Saju Matthew and Kasturi Sigadijian with Frost & Sullivan's Insight Group. Saju is an industry analyst at Frost & Sullivan with 10 years of expertise covering healthcare and electronics sectors. Kasturi is an industry manager with experience in semiconductors, electronics sector, and emerging technologies. And with that, I will turn the presentation over to Saju.
Good morning, everyone. I would like to thank all of you today who have taken the time to participate in this webinar. Today's title for the webinar is Opportunities in Printed Electronics. The agenda of the webinar is as follows. I will start with a brief overview of what printed electronics is all about, the printing techniques employed, the challenges being faced, the partnerships and alliances in the industry, insights, the road ahead, and I'll also be covering an evaluation of the R&D portfolio in the PE market and the application areas, finally ending with the conclusion. Now, moving on to the first slide, which is basically the overview. Printed electronics is the process of creating electronic devices utilizing electrically functional ink on a variety of substrates, employing conventional printing methods. This domain is characterized by simple and cost-effective fabrication of printed electronic devices. The major benefit of PE is low cost, which in turn enables more applications. However, considering the nascent phase of this market, there is still a small measure of ambiguity as to the application areas being targeted. Some assumptions may be on target, while others can be failures due to several reasons, cost of materials being one of the prime concerns. Printing methods are well established in the industry, enabling easy accessibility to new entrants. PE devices are characterized by plasticity, greater portability, and scalability. Ideally, the process involved in PE comprises a functional material being deposited in a controlled manner to print the desired pattern with minimal waste. Moving on to the next slide, which talks about the printing techniques. Printing techniques can be broadly classified as mass printing, sheet-fed printing, and new methods. All right, all right. So this is a slide on the printing techniques. Okay, we skipped a slide. Going back. All right. So basically, the three categories are mass printing, sheet fed printing, and new methods. Mass printing methods are common. They have high volume production reaching 10,000 meters square per hour, while sheet fed methods offer low throughput of approximately 100 meters square per hour and lower resolution. The new methods in the printing techniques are pretty much on a lab scale. The ones I've mentioned here are stamping or nano imprinting and UV lithography. Stamping is pretty much where a stamp process is implemented to print features directly on the surfaces. The size of the printed feature is limited only by what is etched into the stamp or template. UV lithography is where we have nanoscale surface relief features fabricated by electron beam lithography and then used as a stamping tool. Both of them are they are both on a lab scale, and they have really high resolution. The other recent techniques are aerosol jet technology and atomic layer deposition. I haven't mentioned them over here, but I'll just give a brief on it. Aerosol jet technology is basically passing a conductive ink diluted in a tank which is transformed into an aerosol mist through a pathway to the nozzles, where a second gas stream aerodynamically focuses it into a tightly collimated particle beam for printing. The other method is called atomic layer deposition, where ALD basically. The ALD films are deposited with digital control of thickness, layer by layer. Over here, it has like excellent high aspect ratio, very large, large area thickness uniformity, and excellent 3D conformity. A few of the stakeholders that I would like to mention who manufacture printing equipments for PEs are HikuTech, they are into screen printing. Markandi is into flexography. Kaman is into screen printing. Ohio Gravure is into gravure, and Optomic is into aerosol jet printing. Moving on to the next slide. We'll be talking about the challenges, and the challenges are basically divided into two. One, this slide will cover the technical challenges, and the slide after this will be the business challenges. So anyways, on this slide, I have sorted the challenges into their levels of impact according to three different time frames: short term, medium term, and long term. Short term is 1 to 2 years, medium term is 3 to 4 years, and the long term is between 5 to 7 years. The technical challenges are as follows. The low charge carrier mobility. High volume processes require 1 centimeter per square volt second, while the charge carrier mobility required for complex devices is much higher, between 5 to 10. This goal can be achieved by optimizing existing materials or developing new materials. If you look towards the right, you can actually see the impact. Short term is basically high, medium term is medium, and in the long term it's going to be lower. Moving on to the second point, which is the high number of process steps. The process steps required to create printed electronic devices should provide for high material utilization rates, which lower the consumption of expensive catalysts and other materials. Lowering the number of processing steps involved is another challenge being researched, as it helps the industry in reducing work. The third point is material stability. The materials involved in the manufacture of PE possesses different optical, chemical, and electrical properties, which have to be improved to withstand degradation, which is actually measured in decades. The degradation can be due to prolonged use or other environmental factors. The last point is the low complexity levels. PE encompasses applications spread over a diverse landscape, such as chemicals, consumer goods, healthcare, military, and so on. Some require fitting high-performance components into devices with very small footprints, such as biomedical sensors, whereas others require high-performance components over large areas, can be a few square meters. Now, designing complex circuits for a broad range of materials and mass printing processes is a major hurdle. Let's move on to the next slide, which discusses about the challenges on the business front. Now, here again, it's sort of sorted out as short-term, medium-term, and long-term. The first point being the nature of the market. Currently, there is no one-size-fits-all solution in the PE market. There are a variety of technologies, each sitting in its own niche based on its own attributes. This situation actually delays the realization of high-volume markets that would enable true low cost. And this sort of mandates addressing the challenge of product design and integration. Moving on to the second point is the lack of an integrated manufacturer. The industry still lacks an integrated manufacturer in most segments who can assemble all the different components and develop a device for the end user. This link in the supply chain, if understood and solidified, can aid mass manufacturing. The third point is the transition to large-scale manufacturing. Though roll-to-roll printing when applied in PE is effective, the other processes involved in the manufacture of the end product needs improvement. Additionally, for new techniques, a process is yet to be established from lab to experimenting on press. The final point is the manufacturing technique. The key elements for device production are the printing techniques used, the substrate, and the material deposited. Key elements of device production are, changing one of these parameters affects the other two. It, in fact, leads to delay in the testing and development procedures, and this is even more marked because all three components are in constant development. Moving on to the next slide. I have a slide here which talks about the roles of partnerships and alliances. Pretty much over here it's the alliances and organizations which help to boost the technology development in the PE space. We have Organic Electronics Association, OEA, which was founded in 2004 in Frankfurt, Germany. They have over 192 members from 29 countries around Europe, Asia, and NA. They are responsible for organizing the LOPEC, or the Large Area Organic and Printed Electronics Convention, every year, where they cover aspects on commercialization, applications, technology, and the science of organic and printed electronics. The other alliance is Japan Advanced Printed Electronics Technology Research Association, or JAPERA. This association was established in March 2011. They operate under the project for the development of fundamental technologies for next generation printed electronic materials and processes under a commission from the New Energy and Industrial Technology Development Organization, or NEDO. The third one I have mentioned is the Printed Electronics Arena, PEA. They conduct workshops. They achieve expansion via new business relationships and cluster meetings. Their primary target groups consist of regional parties who form part of the complex, who form part of the value chain. The final group I have mentioned is the FlexTech Alliance, which was founded in 1993, formerly known as the U.S. Display Consortium, USDC. They are based out of San Jose, California, USA. They operate through regional chapters throughout NA to help foster development of the supply chain, to support world-class infrastructure and manufacturing capability for displays and flexible printed electronics. Moving on to the next slide, I have over here a roadmap which sort of gives insights on the status and direction of printed electronics. And the timeline is divided from 2012 to 2013, 2015, 15 to 17, and 17 and beyond. If you look at it between the timeline 2012 to 2013, I have mentioned flexography, gravure, and offset, which are in high demand for low power applications because of their high throughput. Flexography, however, has compatibility problems with solvent systems, and offset has high startup costs with very specific ink formulations which have to be used. Screen printing is inexpensive and can be used for limited applications. Inkjet, though widely accepted, can be used on a range of substrates. However, it has yield problems. ALD offers precise control of depositions down to atomic scale. Aerosol is currently being used for 3D interconnects. Moving on to the second phase of the timeline, we have flexography, which will be more widely used for RFID applications. Gravure will be the choice for hybrid electronic manufacturing processes, considering it can produce a uniform conductive incline. Inkjet technology will see R&D progress on the nanoscale. There will be more applications on solar cells due to its non-contact method of printing. The development of transistors will be one of the major applications. From 2015 and beyond, we can see that there will be more R&D on inkjet, which will bring around better scale-up as issues such as the number of jets per print head and number of print heads while maintaining design integrity will be optimized. Mass printing techniques such as flexography, gravure, and offset will see major applications in the manufacture of thin film electronics, large area electronics, and displays. Printed electronics devices based on flexography and atomic layer deposition may impact the healthcare market from 2017 and beyond. Let's move on to the next slide, which talks about the evaluation of the R&D portfolio in the PE market. Here I have deployed analytical hierarchical process, an AHP, which is a multi-criteria decision-making tool. AHP is implemented to evaluate the R&D portfolio among the different printing techniques. The printing techniques, again, broadly classified into mass printing, sheet-fed, aerosol, jet printing, and atomic layer deposition. In the AHP, the scores assigned to the parameters are synthesized based on pairwise comparisons of the elements, of the different elements that we choose. The resulting outcome gives an insight in realizing the parameters that make the factors. They are spheres of influence and the impact it has had in shaping the PE market. As you can see, it's divided into four different criteria: technology aspect, R&D aspects, financial aspects, and the market aspects. The technology aspects, if you look at it, is basically where R&D is heavily focused on the substrates, quality of printing techniques. The market basically is seeing new application areas, exploratory application areas, in addition to complementing the existing electronics market. Under technology aspects, we have technology maturity, throughput, resolution, and the process steps, where technology maturity is basically the capability of the technology to succeed while addressing the industry challenges. Under R&D aspects, we have R&D efforts, basically the initiatives taken to boost R&D platforms, patents, a measure of the IP, breadth of applications, the markets that it can serve, and the new markets that it can open up. Under financial aspects, we have the cost and funding. Finance actually plays a strong role in accelerating the pace of innovations and inventions. Under cost, it's basically the investment being pumped into printing techniques, the machinery, the setup, the modifications, etc., the technology process. While funding is basically the assessment of funding for each identified technology sectors, government funding, VC funding, etc. And the final broad level criteria we had is market aspects, under which we have scalability, which is basically the ability to launch R&D activity into the commercial space and to successfully meet the demand. So in effect, high volume production. And the other point below it is basically the market potential, where we're trying to find out the priority of the technology in the market when developed and commercialized. Basically, the significance of the particular technique in the market. As you can see from the pie chart, the mass printing techniques has the ranks #1, with sheet fed being #2, and aerosol and atomic layer being 3 and 4. The mass printing techniques have a slight edge in the PE market, primarily as they're easy to set up and all players are focusing heavily in the mass production aspect, basically addressing high volume, low cost business models. Sheet fed techniques are also popular as they're being experimented in a variety of manners with respect to substrates, ink formulations, and process methodology. However, R&D is still required to determine the right combination of printheads, chassis, and post-processing. Aerosol is an edited technology with high resolution and direct writing capability. The technology, though, is still in its nascent stage, and more improvements are expected on the substrate thickness level. The final alternative we had was the atomic layer deposition, which is a chemistry-driven process. It has ultra-high aspect ratio and the highest resolution compared to other technologies. However, the technology is still in lab stage and requires concrete printing process steps. Let's move on to the next slide. Over here, basically, is the assessment of the potential application areas. And I sort of narrowed down on 9 different application areas. They are as mentioned over here: touch sensors, OLED lighting, and flexible OLED displays, which I have sort of clubbed into one. Then we have printed TFTs for backplanes, flexible organic PV chargers, printed RFIDs, consumer goods packaging, the healthcare market, printed batteries, and printed memories. Now, the criteria on which we assessed these applications are the ones given below. The 6 criteria we have, which are technology capabilities, which explains how the selected technology is better than the existing technology. The demand, the reason why the end user wants to embrace this particular technology. The tech development status, which is basically the commercialization or the development phase of the technology. Industry initiatives are the stakeholder activities, funding collaborations, and market revenues are basically the market potential for those particular applications. Entry barriers are the challenges for why these technologies will actually take time, or for them to hit commercialization, etc. Let's move on to the next slide, in which we talk about the tech capabilities. Over here, I have listed out all the 9 applications with their tech capabilities towards the side. I won't exactly go, read up through all of them, but I'll just talk about a few. We have touch sensors over here, where transparent conductors, are fast replacing ITO materials. Transparent conductors, they rely on inexpensive printing technology, which includes gravure, flexo, and rotary screen, as opposed to ITO, ITO deposition, which requires vacuum deposition and photolithography, both of which are expensive. If you look at the OLED lighting, OLED displays, you'll find that OLED screens do not need backlighting, as each pixel creates its own light due to the emissive nature of OLEDs. In effect, it reduces power consumption when compared to LCD displays. So, in effect, there'll be like thinner form factor. The other one is the TFTs for backplanes. Flexible TFTs, they possess low elastic modulus and low temperature deposition. It has pretty much relative ease of manufacturing using inkjet printing. Moving on, we can actually find consumer goods packaging, where when we try to integrate printer electronic components with sensors, we can actually provide a lower cost solution than conventional electronic devices. And then the other interesting market is the healthcare market. Printing biological material in addition to printing the electrodes can actually contribute to further reducing the cost of diagnostic systems, point of care basically, diagnostic systems. Printed electronics could also be conducive to printing sensor arrays, interconnects, as well as RFID antennas, and possibly RFID chips for vital signs monitoring, for example, as in remote patient monitoring. Compared to conventional arrays, the P can also enable ease of integration of the components of the sensor array and ease of integrating the sensors and the substrate. Let's move on to the next slide, which talks about why there is a demand for all these different technologies. As you will see, they are pretty much, I have pretty much given the gist of the reasons why the end user finds it interesting. Like if you look at touch sensors, it actually really boosts the user interface where you can actually change the controls from 1 minute taking a picture to the next minute taking a call or whatever. So there's a lot of flexibility to the end user to actually use the device in whatever way or whatever fashion he wants to use it. Flexible OLED displays and OLED lighting are pretty much going to be lightweight and difficult to break. They also pretty much, they'll be like low power consumption, thin form factor, reduced cost. If you look at the flexible OPV chargers, it will be suitable mostly for countries with a lot of sunshine. The pricing is also ideal. It stands at say $30 to $35. We have printed memories, which is again one of its major applications will be NFC and the Internet of Things. Here again, it can actually have a lot of application areas where we can actually bring down the cost of the product. We have printed RFIDs. In printed RFIDs, I think the first major entry would be in NFC, and then later on in RFID, where we can actually come up with better standards. Not better standards, but once the standards improve, then we can come up with better application areas. Then we have the CGP, where we can actually enhance brand enhancement labeling, intelligent packing to document the freshness of the product, the brand authenticity and traceability. Healthcare, again, point-of-care diagnostic systems, which can be very cost-effective, and the number of applications will only be exponential actually. Then we have printed batteries, where it will be a huge boost for the wireless sensor network, especially in cases where we have to drive down the space and the weight, and at the same time adding functionality at a much reduced cost. Let's move on to the next slide, where we'll be talking about the technology readiness levels, or the TRL. As you can see, it's it ranges from 1 to 9, where 1 is the basic research and 9 is the launch and the commercialization. The top to hit commercialization would be flexible organic photovoltaic chargers. As was shown earlier, there are a few out in the market, but the application areas which are going to take a long time would be printed batteries and memories, say 4 to 5 years before they actually hit commercialization. If you look at the healthcare market, you have biosensors with printed glucose sensor strips. They are pretty much there in the market, but we would actually want to see biosensors with higher functionality, with more advanced printed electronics. If you look at the CGP market, I have given a penetration of say 1 to 3 years. We already have a few, like I think Nestle's Cheerio cereal box, which uses an EL display on its packaging. Let's move on to the next slide, which talks about the industry initiatives. As you can see, these are the recent industry initiatives for all these different application areas. I won't exactly go about talking about each one of them. It's pretty much given over here. A few I would like to mention are pretty much the printed RFID. Oricla is actually a European-funded research collaboration where they come up with a bidirectional thin film RFID tag. This RFID tag waits for a specific code from the tag reader before responding. If you look at flexible OPV chargers, we have Vodafone has actually come up with the Booster Brawley, which is pretty much an umbrella device. Again, the price ranges between $30 to $35. And you have the University Kebangsaan, Malaysia, they have come up with a Greenfinity solar charger. Now, let's move on to the next slide, where we'll have a look at the market potential. Over here, it is not exactly the market with respect to the billion-dollar aspect of it. It's more like the numbers that I come up over here are on a rating from 1 to 5, based on the different industry sources which have actually projected their their market revenues. So if you look at it, I've given the highest rating for touch sensors, with the second one being for printed RFIDs, and the third being flexible OLED displays and OLED lighting. OLED lighting, like I mentioned, I think in the previous slide, in the TRL slide, OLED lighting, the TRL is much later than OLED displays. So these are pretty much the different ratings that I've given. As you can see, I think I consider printed batteries to have the least market revenues as of now. All right, and let's move on to the next slide. Over here, I've listed out the entry barriers. Over here again, pretty much I've given out the gist of what the barriers are for each and every application. I'll talk about a few here. If you look at the consumer goods packaging application area, the printed logic will be rolled out. It's more like a mass market application area, but the solution must prove its manufacturability and scalability. So unless and until we address that, it still is a hurdle. And the other challenge is that it's still hard, or it's still a hurdle. It's still challenging to print all the components on one substrate. If you look at healthcare, apart from the technical advantages or the technical innovations that it comes up with, one factor that we have to consider is the FDA approval part of it. Apart from that, the challenges are in like integrating the sensor and the substrate via printed electronics. Printed RFID, again, we need to actually improve the ecosystem. The cost factor has to be brought down again. Let's move on to the next slide. This is a slide with the graphs of all the different application areas in which I have listed out the different criteria. As you can see, the criteria are color-coded. And the rating over here is between 1 to 3. And the top 3 application areas which are sort of finalized are touch sensors, flexible OLED displays, and consumer goods packaging. If you look at touch sensors, here again they have high TRL stage, and they would be out in the market as early as 2013. They have less capital to print transparent conductors and to create touch sensors. While if you look at the OLED display market, there's already major R&D work being done by players like Samsung, Sony, and LG. So that is another market which we can see there will be like a near-time commercialization, high application area. And the final one is consumer goods packaging. Here again, this is one excellent application area. The challenges, like I mentioned earlier, though, are printing all the components on a single substrate. The application, though, will be, in brand enhancement, brand authenticity and traceability, security, novelty, those sort of stuff. Let's move on to the last slide, which is basically the conclusion part. If you look on the technology aspect of it, the key ingredient in developing an ideal printing process is still conductive materials without electronic migration. Now, the few factors over here which are really high are the degree of technical innovation, the price sensitivity, and the competition. If you look at the strategies, alliances, partnerships, and organizations, they do a really wonderful job in in collaborating and bringing together the technology prowess in effect to improve or to boost the product development and commercialization. If you look at the market aspect of it, APAC has really high potential, especially if you look at the smartphone and the OLED display markets. Applications for printed electronics are touch sensors, screens, displays and lighting, as well as CGP, healthcare, and organic photovoltaics. With that, I bring an end to my presentation. I would like to hand over the controls to Kasturi, who will be talking about the Tech Vision 2020, which is, these slides, by the way, are proprietary to Frost & Sullivan. The Tech Vision 2020 is something which we think is going to be on the boost on the technology front. So with that, I hand over the controls to Kasturi.
Thank you, Matthew. Good morning, everyone. Just to give you an introduction of what Tech Vision is, Technical Insights at Frost & Sullivan created a comprehensive view of the most interesting technologies with the most potential in the short term. As we started taking a deeper dive in each technology and its specific ecosystem, we started observing multiple waves of innovation that are on the cusp of exploding new growth opportunities. Many possibilities are constantly evolving within and around the technologies that we have selected. If we can move to the next slide. Multiple signals related to the top 50 technologies on a global innovation radar were recorded, and these are reflected on the slide. 4 critical signals for the next few years are: market potential of the top 50 technologies will be $1.5 trillion over the next 5 years. Funding in the private and public circles will be in excess of $120 billion this year. Patent activity in the last 3 years has been accelerating, and over 175K patents were granted in the last 3 years related to the top 50 technologies. On an average, a top 50 technology powers 5 industries and 3 mega trends. It is all happening because of the constant and growing investment in the R&D activity everywhere. Moving on to the next slide. Technical Insights tracks activity in 9 technology clusters on a weekly basis, which are listed on the slide. Each cluster is a collation of several related technologies. Globally, the innovation temperature in each cluster is heating up as a result of heightened patent activity, funding, and expected market potential. What this means is that in the next coming 2 to 4 years, the patents activity, the investments in R&D, will greatly drive the market participants to realize the market potential. Moving on to next slide. For each technology cluster, we reviewed hundreds of emerging technologies, developments, and innovations globally in the corporate world, universities, scientific institutions, and government labs. We also reviewed each technology from a holistic innovation ecosystem, looking at technology developers, investors, regulators, evangelists, end users, and other technology catalysts. Most importantly, we looked at technologies which have a year of impact in the next 2 to 3 years. That is the time frame in which they are likely to be commercialized or adopted at large globally. We rated each technology across 9 weighted criteria, such as funding, patent intensity, innovation ecosystem, year of impact, global adoption potential, and came up with a composite score which helped us pick the top 50. This is very varied group of technologies. Each technology area is a complicated universe in itself and deep-rooted culture for innovations and expected disruptions resulting in new growth, innovation, and leadership. Moving on to the next slide. Each top 50 technology creates waves which will first impact its home industry and then grow outwards to impact parallel sectors. Interesting would it be when these technologies start interacting with other technologies and create unique products and services. Driven by IP interactivity emanating from each of the top 50 technologies, a whole range of new concepts, products, and services will be launched at speeds in the future. With this, I formally conclude the presentation on opportunities for printed electronics. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that very informative presentation. And I'd like to remind the audience, if you have a question, to please enter it into the question box on your webinar screen. And our first question is, are the industry players new, or will they be drawn from existing IC and display industries?
All right, Dennis. Could you repeat the question again?
Repeat the question?
Yeah.
Okay, sure. Are the industry players new, or will they be drawn from the IC and displays industries?
The industry players mentioned over here are they've been in the PE market for quite some time. So we have pretty much established players, but it is always open since there's high innovation, since there's high technology, scope for it. It's always open to new entrants. And what I mean to say is that new entrants with not exactly like heavy investment or finance muscle, they can actually get into and get into this particular industry.
Okay, to add on to Matthew's answer, what we are also seeing is it depends on the developments happening in the printed electronics industry. We have seen companies which are like major tier companies, for example Samsung, focusing on a specific type of R&D activity within the flexible electronics space. Or maybe, for example, that could be like barrier films or transparent electrodes, where we see major players coming into place. And what we have also seen is there are small startups, for example, companies in Asia Pacific research institutions which are spin-offs. And here we are seeing the stakeholders developing specific type of material or component for the flexible electronics device. So we are seeing pretty much an interest coming largely from the major tier companies, while the startups are complementing in terms of component level developments.
Our next question asks, can you comment on the underlying technology requirements? For example, substrates. Will printed electronics be built on plastic, metal, or paper? Or what do you feel about the potential of Corning's new Willow flexible glass?
Okay, regarding the substrate, it's pretty much not going to be on glass. I guess there's a lot of R&D scope on plastic, on paper. There are, in fact, I think the new advances are trying to come up with RFID tags made out of aluminum and paper substrate. Glass, I don't think would be a good option. So pretty much that's it. I think it's going to be plastic and paper and not metal and glass. On the Corning Willow flexible glass, I guess I'm not really knowledgeable on that. I would like to take that question offline though.
Okay.
Okay. I would like to add a point regarding the substrate material. Apart from plastics, we have also seen examples of companies, at least they have displayed or demonstrated prototypes. I've come across this company, Scott. I've met them in an exhibition where they're trying to make use of this flexible glass, which could be an alternative to polymer-based films which are used in flexible electronic devices. So here we are talking about a flexible glass which can be used for making a barrier film or for a flexible electronics device. So we have seen companies which are coming out with prototypes, but the problem here is going to be the cost, and then I mean in terms of achieving the industry needs with respect to resolution and quality. So there are certain issues, but we have seen companies exploring flexible glass as well.
Our next question is about inks. What types of inks are being considered for thin film transistors?
I would like to, Kasturi, if you could maybe give your inputs on that particular application area.
Inks for TFTs.
Right.
Or any devices?
We have come across companies who are providing ink solutions. I think maybe the names of which maybe we can get it through emails.
Okay. Okay. So our next question. Oh, I would like to just remind the audience that we will be summarizing these questions and providing answers in written form after the webinar broadcast. So our next question is about OPV. What do you feel are the prospects for OPV given the ongoing turmoil in the PV market?
Right.
All right. Yeah. Let Kasturi, can go ahead.
As such, when we're talking about the organic photovoltaics market, we haven't seen a commercial product which could be used for the microelectronics area or for the consumer electronics application. So we had discussions with you industry experts on potential for PV. There are quite a bit of them who are actually exploring OPVs after OLEDs, which are used for which could be used for displays, flexible displays. So they see prospects for OPV maybe after 2015, 2016. Right now, the most interesting market on a comparative note with OLED displays, lighting, or OPVs, I guess it goes more for OLED displays followed by OPV. Matthew, if you want to add some more points.
No, I think she's pretty much touched all the points on OPVs. But the other issue on OPVs is pretty much the efficiency part of it, and that has to be addressed. Which
I would also like to add that we have come across this Cambryos, which employs conductive inks in thin film transparent films, and that is applicable for markets such as touch screens. So we have examples of companies employing inks for transparent films. Just sort of adding a point to the previous question.
Okay, great. Now about the printing process itself, what are your predictions for which will be the most dominant for printed electronics in the future?
I mean, if you look at the printing process, screen printing is pretty much used for limited applications, but since it's an inexpensive printing process, Well, I mean, it depends on the application area. So if you're trying to reduce the cost, you would actually go for an inexpensive printing technique like screen. While flexography will be slightly more expensive than screen printing. But if you're looking for which is going to be the most dominant for printer electronics, well, it's going to be the one which can have really high volume production. And those would be, the ones under the mass printing sectors.
And I guess there's also a question on substrate type typically used. Is that the most dominant type of material? Denise, is that the question? Are we talking about the prominent material, the substrate material?
No, I think the question was just about which printing process. It wasn't really.
Okay, I think then Matthew has answered. I'm seeing another question, prominent type of substrate material. Based on the discussions that we had in our own research, we find that PET is the most common type of substrate material which is considered. So I guess if that answers the question.
There's a question on consumer goods. Which industry has a potential for consumer goods package?
I would say it will be mostly the food packaging industry. But there's also like a huge initiative and coming up with other different application areas under the goods packaging. I think I mentioned in my slide where I talked about the new initiative by Pragmatic IC. They have a pilot production program called the P4, including companies like Innovia Films, DuPont, Tigen, Print Electronics, and Enfisel, where they're coming up with a smart packaging for consumer, security, and novelty applications.
Oh, as a tie-on to that, who do you see as market leaders in printed electronics product design and integration?
That's actually a bit of a hard question, but I think this one would be for companies working on the OLED displays, actually. Samsung, I guess they would be pretty much, the market leaders. I would also like to know Kasturi's inputs on this one, actually, her insights on this.
Yes, we can respond that through email, Matthew.
Okay. Do that. Okay. So we have a question about low mobility.
Mm-hmm.
So is it typical to see a low mobility for organic TFT? Does silicon oxide have better mobility?
All right, so they're talking about the TFT for backplanes. All right, amorphous silicon, they have low mobility, actually. Silicon oxide has, I don't think it has better mobility, it has low mobility.
I think we talked a little bit about carbon nanotubes.
Mm-hmm. On the carbon nanotube, I think the printing techniques that we have, which is nano imprint, and the other one being the UV lithography. Well, both of them are, on the really fine nano scale. UV lithography, for that matter, is more of where they can actually produce the patterns in the sub 50 nanometer range, when in contrast to thermal NIL, because they can actually be done in room temperature. They can be processed in room temperature. The research effort is centered on fabricating features smaller than 50 nanometer, which is both challenging and expensive. But like I mentioned earlier, the stamping or the nano printing and UV lithography, both of them are pretty much in the lab scale. They have high throughput, high resolution, but they still, I think, have a lot to go before you can actually come up with talking about a commercialization or a product, stuff like that.
I think that's about all the questions. I did want to bring up that for those of you who are interested in learning more about ink and substrate interactions, we also have a workshop coming up in August up at Western Michigan University, and you can check our website for more information about that. And I would like to thank our guest speakers today for a wonderful job, an overview of printed electronics, and remind everybody that as an attendee and as a FlexTech Alliance member, you are eligible for a discount on their report on printed electronics. So thank you very much for joining us today, and we will be sending out answers to all these questions as a follow-up. So, thank you, Saju and Histori.
Thank you all.
Everyone.
Thank you, everyone.